Usually, like when we talk about reaching the absolute pinnacle of a career, there's this underlying expectation of a slow, steady climb.
Right, highly predictable.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
put in your decades, you slowly gather your accolades, and eventually, the math works out and you get to survey the landscape from the top.
But then you step into the world of elite, avant-garde creativity, and suddenly that gentle slope is just, well, it's gone.
Yeah, completely gone. We're looking at a trajectory today that totally defies standard career physics.
I mean, imagine dedicating your life to an incredibly niche physical craft, reaching the absolute top of your field by age 26.
Which is wild on its own.
Right. And then being thrown into an isolated room, you were given just 4 hours to prove your worth to the living legends of your industry.
With materials you haven't fully prepared.
Exactly. Zero safety net.
And if you fail, the entire world gets to watch the structural collapse of your reputation on national television. So yeah, okay, let's unpack this.
We have a really fascinating piece of source material today.
We do. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a transcript from an episode of the Hairstylist Empowerment podcast.
Which is hosted by B. Rad, who is a former television host and an absolute veteran in the beauty industry.
Yeah, and his guest is Dylan McConaughey.
And Dylan is a 26-year-old award-winning avant-garde hairstylist.
Although that label, hairstylist, almost feels like a semantic failure for what he actually does.
It really does. It doesn't cover it at all.
Not even close. So to be clear with you listening right now, the mission of this deep dive is not to talk about haircuts.
Yeah, we're not discussing the best way to trim split ends.
Or like which volumizing shampoo you should buy.
Yeah.
We are dissecting the anatomy of elite creativity.
We're looking at the psychological crucible of reality television.
Yeah, and breaking down the brutal structural mechanics of mastering any craft.
Whether you are a software engineer compiling code, a writer staring at a blank manuscript.
Or a manager trying to lead a team through a crisis.
Right. Or just someone who is insanely curious about how top-tier professionals are forged.
This breakdown of creative discipline will fundamentally change how you view your own daily work.
So we really have to look at the mathematics of his career first to understand the anomaly we are dealing with.
The timeline is crazy.
It is. Dylan is 26 years old. He has been working in the industry for 12 years.
What? Wait.
And he's been officially qualified for 10.
Let's just do the math on that for a second.
Yes.
That means he started working in this environment at 14 years old.
Yeah, exactly. 14.
And was fully qualified by 16.
Oh.
That's just, I was barely learning to drive at 16.
It's an accelerated timeline, for sure. And at age 17, within just 6 months of qualifying, he won the Hairdresser's Journal Young Hairdresser of the Year award.
Okay, wow.
And there's a fascinating quirk to this specific achievement, actually.
Oh, right. The organization restructured or something.
Yeah, the award hasn't actually been held since he won it. They paused that specific category. So technically, a decade later, he is still the reigning champion.
He holds a title that froze in time.
He does.
Which is an incredible piece of trivia, but I feel like it risks feeding right back into this pervasive myth of the natural.
Oh, absolutely. People hear that and make assumptions.
Right. People look at a 17-year-old award winner and they assume there's some genetic lottery at play. They say, oh, you just wake up with an artistic eye. You're just naturally gifted.
But looking at the source material, his training was not a gentle nurturing of some inner artist.
It sounds like an absolute gauntlet.
It really was an uncompromising environment. He trained under Skylar McDonald at a highly prestigious salon called Sean Hannah in London.
And the training there was famously unapologetic, right?
Famously. If Dylan was executing a fundamental technique, say, putting in highlights, and the execution was flawed, there was no gentle, constructive feedback sandwich.
Like, hey, great job on the sectioning, but maybe fix the foil.
None of that. He wasn't pulled aside and told what a great effort he made. He was told, point blank, wash it, do it again.
See, wait, I have to challenge this.
Go ahead.
In modern professional environments, telling a teenager, you sucked, fix it,
Oh, yeah.
and making them wash a mannequin head over and over just sounds like toxic hazing.
It sounds harsh, yeah.
It sounds like the kind of management we are actively trying to train out of corporate culture today. How does he actually learn the physics of the craft if they aren't guiding him step by step through the failure?
Well, does repetitive punishment actually yield artistic mastery? That's the question.
Exactly.
But you are touching on the vital difference between attacking the ego and attacking the execution.
Okay, explain that.
B. Rad, the host of the podcast, brings up a parallel story to contextualize this. B. Red started at 14 as a makeup artist, transitioned to hair, and finished hair school 2.5 months early by basically living at the salon clinics.
So another prodigy type.
Right. But even graduating at the top of the class, B. Rad trained under a world champion who bluntly stated that it takes 3 to 5 years just to start to get good.
Just to start to get good.
Yeah.
Meaning the entirety of your formal schooling, the hundreds of hours required just to legally touch someone's head, only brings you to the baseline of not being a liability.
It makes you safe, not skilled.
Wow. Okay, that puts it in perspective.
Precisely. And in that context, wash it, do it again isn't an insult. It's a compiler error.
A compiler error, like in coding.
Think about writing code. If you miss a single semicolon, the program doesn't run. The computer doesn't care about your feelings. It just throws a syntax error.
It just says fail.
Exactly. The salon floor was Dylan's compiler. When Skylar told him to wash it, she was telling him his physical syntax was wrong.
I see. So if the tension on the comb is wrong or the saturation of the chemical isn't perfectly even, the entire structural integrity of the style fails.
Yes, the whole thing falls apart. And the managers wouldn't degrade you in front of the client. They would pull you to the back room, highlight the exact mechanical failure, and tell you to correct it.
So it's highly specific feedback.
Highly specific. And what's fascinating here is Dylan explicitly states that he prefers this unvarnished feedback. He actively wants people to tell him he is doing a bad job.
Because it fuels his desire to improve.
Exactly. He learned at a very young age to completely divorce his personal identity from the output of his hands.
That reframing is so powerful. He doesn't hear, Dylan, you are a failure. He hears, this specific chemical application is inadequate, and you possess the physical capability to make it adequate.
It's pure data.
Pure data. It's like forging steel, right?
Yeah.
You need extreme heat and relentless hammering. You can't just politely ask the metal to become a sword.
That's a great analogy. And because he survived that repetitive loop, because he allowed his foundational skills to be bug-tested over and over, he gained a rigid mastery of the fundamental rules of his craft.
Which is the mandatory prerequisite for what comes next.
Right, because you cannot subvert the rules of a physical medium until you understand its absolute limits.
And Dylan's current work doesn't involve giving clients a nice layered cut or a blowout.
Not at all. He creates avant-garde structural centerpieces.
And this is where his perspective radically diverges from the norm in his industry. The source points out that Dylan doesn't actually have a family background in hair.
No, he didn't grow up sweeping floors in his mother's salon.
His interest stems from viewing hair entirely differently than almost anyone else. He doesn't view it as biological matter growing out of a scalp.
What does he view it as?
He views it as fabric.
It is a complete paradigm shift. He treats hair as an architectural material.
Which is mind-blowing.
He is highly visual. He notes that if he sees an interesting building, a suspension bridge, or like a bizarre piece of synthetic fabric,
His first instinct is, I want to build that exact structure, but I want to build it out of hair.
yeah, it's wild.
It makes me think of the difference between a home cook and a molecular gastronomist.
Okay, how so?
Well, a normal person looks at a tomato and sees a salad ingredient. The chef looks at a tomato and sees a structural component that can be clarified into a transparent consommé
Right.
or whipped into a rigid foam.
Oh, I like that.
Dylan sees a head of hair and envisions a skyscraper.
He does, but practically, mechanically, how do you build a skyscraper out of keratin?
That's a thing. You have to utilize techniques that sound more like civil engineering than cosmetology.
Like what?
He relies heavily on creating hair sheets.
Let's pause and explain what that actually means, physically, for you listening. What is a hair sheet?
Imagine taking a thick section of loose hair. Instead of braiding it or curling it, you lay it flat on a non-stick surface.
Okay, flat on a table.
Yeah. And then you saturate it entirely with specialized high-hold resins and lacquers.
Like soaking it.
Soaking it. Then, using the spine of a comb, you press every individual cylindrical strand completely flat against its neighbor, removing all the air gaps.
Getting all the air out.
Finally, you apply direct, intense thermal energy, usually with a specialized flat iron, to bake the resin into the cuticle of the hair.
So you are essentially curing it.
Yes, you are turning organic, flexible protein strands into a stiff, rigid panel. It's almost like making fiberglass or carbon fiber.
That is exactly the mechanism. And once he has these rigid panels, what does he do?
He can cut them into geometric shapes, mold them, and assemble them.
But a structure of that size requires scaffolding, right? You can't just glue hair together and expect it to stand 3 feet tall.
Exactly. This is where he incorporates materials like chicken coop wire.
Wait, chicken wire on a human being's head.
Yes. He uses chicken wire to build the internal skeleton of the avant-garde piece. It provides immense volume and structural rigidity.
But wire is heavy, and these pieces are massive.
So he uses papier-mâché over the wire to create a solid surface that the hair sheets can be adhered to.
Papier-mâché in a hair salon.
Yeah, ensuring the entire towering apparatus remains light enough for a model to physically support on their neck while walking down a runway.
It is pure weight distribution and load-bearing architecture.
Think about your own job for a second. What is your fabric? And what happens if you stop treating it the way everyone else does?
The precision required to hide the chicken wire to make sure the papier-mâché doesn't dissolve from the moisture in the hair products.
Oh man, the moisture from the lacquers.
Right. And to balance the center of gravity on a moving human, it's just staggering.
And this cross-disciplinary inspiration, applying the laws of structural architecture to cosmetology, has led him to become a finalist for the British Hairdressing Awards in the Avant-Garde category.
And to perform at the Alternative Hair Show 5 times.
But again, think about the dependency here.
You mean the foundational skills?
Yeah. You cannot build a tower of chicken wire, papier-mâché, and fiberglass-like hair sheets unless you possess an absolute baseline mastery of how hair behaves under tension.
How it reacts to adhesives, how it reflects light.
Right. The brutal repetitive training on the salon floor under Skylar McDonald is the bedrock foundation that allows this architecture to stand up without collapsing.
You have to know the rules of physics before you can defy gravity.
So we have this meticulous architect, a creator who, by his own admission, usually takes months to plan a single photographic shoot.
Months. He tests the wire gauges, he preps the hair sheets, he cures the resins, he agonizes over every microscopic detail.
But there was a fatal flaw in relying on meticulous month-long planning. Makes you fragile.
Right. So what happens when you take a meticulous architect and strip away his most vital tool, time?
You enter the pressure cooker.
Now we transition into Dylan's experience on the reality television show The Big Blowout, which aired on E4 in the UK.
The entire environment of this show was designed from the ground up to be a psychological and creative crucible.
Just to set the scene for the stakes here.
Yeah?
This show was produced by the exact same production company behind the Great British Bake Off.
Which means the scale was massive.
Huge. It was hosted by AJ Odudur, and the judges were absolute titans in the industry, Sam McKnight and Lisa Farrell.
For a hairstylist, walking into a room and realizing your work is going to be judged by Sam McKnight.
It's like a young film student walking onto a soundstage and realizing they have to direct a scene live in front of Steven Spielberg.
Exactly. And the producers understood that isolation breeds anxiety. They utilized a strategy of total sensory and informational deprivation.
The contestants were kept completely in the dark prior to filming.
They didn't know who the judges would be, who the host was, or who the other contestants were until the moment they walked onto the set.
Although the transcript mentions a funny quirk of fate.
What was that?
Dylan actually recognized one of his fellow contestants, Vicky.
Oh, right, because they'd accidentally bumped into each other during the audition process.
Yeah. And spoiler alert for a show that already aired, Vicky ultimately won the entire competition.
Oh, wow. Good for her. But aside from that one familiar face, they were entirely isolated from expectations.
And then the production dropped the constraints on them.
The constraints were terrifying. They were given a maximum of 4 hours to conceptualize, construct, and finalize an absolute masterpiece.
Think about Dylan's normal workflow. He takes months.
Now he has 240 minutes.
They were allowed a maximum of 20% preparation in advance, but even that was strictly policed.
Very strictly. They could only specify the hair type, the texture, and the base color of the model they wanted.
Everything else, the actual bone structure of the model's face, the reality of how that specific human's hair reacts to humidity or heat on that specific day was a completely blank canvas.
To make it even more intense, the producers threw in mystery challenges.
Right. A contestant might suddenly be tasked with working entirely with synthetic wigs.
Or executing intricate bridal updos, or precision architectural cutting, or complex color correction.
And they wouldn't be told what the specific task was until exactly 2 hours before the clock started.
Let's put that time limit into perspective for someone listening who doesn't work in a salon. If you go in for a major color correction, say, taking someone from box-eyed black hair to a clean, icy blonde wall, what does that actually entail mechanically, and how long does it usually take?
Well, a proper color correction is a chemical negotiation. You have to strip the artificial pigment without melting the natural keratin structure of the hair.
Because if you push it too far, it just turns to mush.
Exactly, it literally snaps off. You have to monitor the lift, neutralize unwanted warm tones with countercolors on the color wheel, and rebuild the bonds.
It's chemistry.
Pure chemistry. In a high-end salon, a service like that can easily take 6 to 8 hours, sometimes spread across multiple appointments.
And they had to condense that chemistry, plus the styling, plus the conceptual architecture, into 240 minutes.
It's absurd.
And just to understand the physical toll this takes on a human body, the transcript notes that one final 45-minute episode of television took 2 full, exhausting days of continuous filming.
The fatigue, the stress, the glaring heat of the studio lights, it's an environment engineered to make you crack.
Dylan openly admits in the interview that he is naturally a stressy person.
He is an overthinker. He does not traditionally believe he works well under pressure.
But when you compress time that severely, a documented psychological phenomenon occurs.
I want to dig into this because this is where the source material gets profound.
Let's do it.
If you give a perfectionist 3 months to plan a project, Parkinson's law dictates that the work will expand to fill the time allotted.
Right, the task takes as long as you give it.
But it's more than just taking longer. The brain's executive function actually uses that surplus time to invent infinite failure states.
So the prefrontal cortex starts simulating disasters. What if the papier-mâché doesn't dry? What if the chicken wire snaps? What if the judges hate the silhouette?
Exactly. Infinite time creates infinite problems to solve.
That makes so much sense.
But when you impose an absolute, unmoving, extreme artificial constraint, like a 4-hour countdown clock, the brain's executive function literally does not have the bandwidth to entertain the what-ifs.
It has to shut down the simulation and switch entirely into localized, instinctual execution. It forces a state of flow out of pure survival instinct.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Dylan discovered that under that artificial constraint, he could execute techniques on the fly that he didn't even consciously know he was capable of.
His hands moved faster than his conscious thought.
He bypassed his own perfectionism.
Which leads me to a really challenging question about how we all work. Is perfectionism actually just a luxury of time?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right, when you only have 4 hours, you absolutely have to sacrifice the illusion of a flawless plan for the reality of execution. And paradoxically, does that rapid forced execution end up being more brilliant because it is purely instinctual, completely uncluttered by second guessing?
Well, the show served as a forced recalibration of his internal speedometer. Because he was forced to do a 9-hour job in 4 hours, he now knows permanently that his baseline capability is vastly higher than his anxiety allowed him to believe.
Even when he returns to his studio and has months to plan a shoot, the heavy weights have been taken off his ankles.
He knows what he is capable of when the safety net is gone.
But let's look at the social dynamics of this environment.
Yeah, let's look at the other contestants.
Usually, when you put sleep-deprived artists in a room, give them impossible tasks, and add the pressure of national television, you breed toxic manufactured drama.
You get people sabotaging each other for screen time.
Exactly. The source material reveals a fascinating subversion of that exact reality TV trope, though.
Going into the production, the contestants were genuinely terrified that the show would make the hair industry look bitchy or catty.
They assumed they were walking into an editing trap designed to humiliate them for ratings.
But the exact opposite happened. The contestants formed what Dylan fondly calls a little hair family.
A little hair family. That's so wholesome.
They created a WhatsApp group that is still active. They chat almost daily. They coordinate attending industry events together.
There was absolutely no pre-scripted drama left on the cutting room floor because the contestants simply refused to give the producers that kind of toxic material.
Look at the mechanics of the challenge again. Cognitive load theory explains exactly why this happened.
How so?
In a cutthroat environment with ample time, you might have the energy for sabotage or intense jealousy. But when you have 240 minutes to build a skyscraper out of hair and chicken wire, your cognitive load is maxed out at 100%.
You literally do not have the mental bandwidth or the spare seconds to look over at your competitor's station and feel jealous.
You are entirely selfishly focused on your own survival against the ticking clock.
The shared trauma of the constraint bonded them. They weren't fighting each other, they were all fighting the clock.
But what about the judges? Sam McKnight and Lisa Farrell.
Right. Dylan is standing there, sleep-deprived, offering up a 4-hour rush job to absolute titans of the industry.
He could have viewed their brutal televised critiques as soul-crushing.
But remember his foundational training. Remember the compiler error. Watch it, do it again.
He was psychologically primed to receive harsh critique as a mechanical gift, not a personal attack.
He viewed the terrifying judging process not as negative television drama, but as an invaluable 8-week free masterclass.
He explicitly points out that he could never, in his lifetime, afford the day rate to hire Sam McKnight for 8 weeks of private tutoring.
But the reality show essentially gave him exactly that, subsidized by a television network.
He took the notes, he adjusted his physical execution, and he survived the crucible.
And this raises a crucial point about imposter syndrome.
Which plagues almost every high achiever, regardless of the industry.
Dylan struggled with it immensely. Despite the awards at 17, despite the Avant-Garde nominations, he felt like a fraud.
But this experience culminated in an incredibly cinematic twist of fate shortly after the show finished airing.
This sequence of events is just brilliant. So Dylan survives the show. He puts his avant-garde work out into the world.
And then he gets nominated for the Fellowship Sessions Stylist of the Year award.
Which, for a 26-year-old, is a massive validation.
Massive. But then he looks at the short list of other nominees in his exact category.
He is competing against Luke Benson, a phenomenal established stylist, and Lisa Farrell.
The very woman who had just spent 8 weeks standing at the judge's podium, critiquing his every move on national television, was now his direct competitor for an industry award.
The hierarchy completely flattened in an instant.
He went from the sweating student hoping for a passing grade from the master to standing on the exact same podium as an equal peer.
Dylan states in the interview that this was the specific moment that finally truly broke his imposter syndrome.
He had this realization, it's time to start believing I am good.
Yeah, he says, the industry wouldn't nominate me alongside the person who judges me if I wasn't speaking the same artistic language.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it illustrates the absolute power of proximity.
Imposter syndrome thrives in isolation, right?
It thrives when we put our idols on pedestals miles above us and assume they possess some magical quality we lack.
But by surviving the intense scrutiny of his idols, by existing in the same highly stressful room as them, Dylan demystified them.
He saw that they are just applying the same fundamental laws of physics and chemistry to hair that he is.
It's like getting drafted into the major leagues, striking out your first time at bat, but the pitcher comes over and gives you free tips on your swing.
You realize they aren't your enemies, they are your peers.
So after reaching this new, incredible peak, he has the self-belief, the public recognition from television, the technical mastery to build structural architecture, and the validation of his peers. Where does an artist go next?
This brings us to a really interesting phase of his career, the economics of expertise.
We need to examine the pivot from proving yourself to sharing your knowledge and the strategic business decisions that inevitably follow.
Dylan's current roles reflect this shift from purely executing to directing.
He works as the creative director for DJM Collective, currently operating out of a co-working space, but with clear ambitions for opening his own dedicated studio.
And he is also the art director for an education platform called We Love.
And he is highly sought after as an educator. The transcript notes he hosted a completely sold-out Avant-Garde masterclass in London on January 22nd.
The demand was so high, he had to squeeze in a maximum of 3 additional spots for people who contacted him directly.
And the promise of this class is fascinating. He isn't just standing on a stage showing off the finished pieces.
He is pulling back the curtain on the exact gravity-defying creations he built on the television show.
He promises his students that when these seemingly impossible hair structures are broken down into their granular, step-by-step techniques.
The wireframing, the application of the resin for the hair sheets, the structural braiding.
The impossible suddenly looks, in his words, actually quite easy.
Is teaching the ultimate final form of mastery?
I think so. Because you can fake a finished product with good lighting and camera angles. But you cannot fake a step-by-step breakdown.
You have to know the DNA of the creation inside and out to be able to explain it to a junior stylist who has never touched chicken wire in their life.
Absolutely. Teaching forces you to articulate the instinctual.
Remember, on the TV show, under the 4-hour constraint, he was acting purely on adrenaline and bypassed executive function.
Right.
To teach that exact same piece, he has to retroactively analyze his own genius. He has to reverse engineer his own flow state and build a logical map for others to follow.
And he clearly has a passion for education. The source mentions he teaches highly technical Instagram live sessions on things like scalp lighteners and air-touch balayage on dark-haired doll heads.
We should probably clarify those terms because they highlight the extreme precision of what he teaches when he's not building avant-garde towers.
Good point. So what is a scalp lightener?
A scalp lightener isn't just slapping bleach on hair. It's the meticulous application of raw, highly reactive chemical lightener directly to the living skin of the human scalp to achieve maximum uniform blonde without causing chemical burns.
Sounds incredibly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Extremely.
And air-touch balayage, what's that?
Balayage is a freehand painting technique for highlights. But air touch is a fascinating mechanical evolution of it. Human hair grows in different phases, meaning every section of hair has long, mature strands and short, new growth.
Right, the flyaways.
Air touch uses the concentrated kinetic force of a blow dryer to physically push all the short, new hairs out of the foil section.
Oh, wow.
You then only apply bleach to the long hairs. It creates a mathematically perfect, seamless gradient of color without any harsh lines.
It is pure technical problem solving. But here is the massive pivot.
Despite this clear passion for education, and despite having sold out masterclasses, Dylan announces in the interview that he is making a highly strategic choice.
He is consciously pausing his major educational efforts in 2023. He is stepping back from the lucrative masterclasses.
Why would someone walk away from a sold-out revenue stream?
Because he recognizes a fundamental truth about career longevity. He states he needs to focus on major PR opportunities and, crucially, on creating new, high-end photographic collections.
This highlights the constant, agonizing tension in any successful creative or corporate career. The magnetic pull between doing the work and teaching the work.
When you become known as an expert in any field, there is massive financial and ego-driven incentive to just constantly teach what you already know.
You get paid well, people clap for you, and it's safe because you already solved the problem.
B-Rad, the host, even mentions the massive industry push toward digital and virtual classes post-lockdown.
Right, B-Rad himself is plugging an upcoming project, the Mind Soul Beauty Industry Cruise, happening in May 2023 on the Scarlet Lady with Heather Robertson and other A-list artists.
There is an entire, highly profitable microeconomy built around experts teaching other professionals.
So what does this all mean? Dylan understands the danger of that loop.
You cannot teach from an empty cup.
If he spends all of 2023 traveling the world, teaching people how he built the hair structures from the 2022 TV show, he isn't innovating.
He is simply harvesting past crops.
His conscious choice to step back, to go back to the drawing board, and to refill his own creative well through new, agonizingly planned photo shoots is brilliant.
He is prioritizing input over output.
It requires immense discipline to look at a sold-out masterclass, turn down the money, and choose to sit in an empty studio to invent something new.
But that is the exact same discipline that allowed him to win the Young Hairdresser of the Year award at 17.
He is applying the wash it, do it again mentality to his own macro career trajectory.
He reached the top of the mountain, so he is forcing himself to find a new cliff face.
I want to connect this directly back to you, the listener. Think about your own career right now.
Are you spending too much time explaining what you do, managing what you do, or repeating past successes?
Are you living off the fumes of your last big project?
When is the right time for you to take a deliberate, potentially risky pause on your output to focus entirely on fresh input?
It is the only way to avoid obsolescence in a fast-moving industry.
Dylan's parting advice in the source material is deeply grounding, especially coming from someone who reached elite status so young.
He simply says, spend a lot of time assisting.
Assisting. Being the person washing the hair at the basin, being the person sweeping the floor.
Yes. Humility and the willingness to learn the unglamorous physics of your field from the absolute bottom up are the secret ingredients that allow you to move incredibly fast later on.
You have to endure the compiler errors before you can write the master code. Let's synthesize this incredible journey. We have traversed a massive landscape today.
We started with a 14-year-old kid standing at a basin in a London salon, taking brutal, unfiltered critiques on his technique, learning to separate his ego from the execution of his hands.
We saw how that rigid, uncompromising discipline gave him the foundational mastery required to view his medium not as biological hair, but as architectural fabric.
He used resin, chicken wire, and papier-mâché to build gravity-defying structures.
Then, we threw that meticulous architect into the pressure cooker of reality television. We stripped away his preparation time and gave him 4 hours and a blank canvas.
And we saw how extreme artificial constraint bypassed his prefrontal cortex, silenced his perfectionism, and forced pure instinctual execution.
We witnessed the subversion of reality TV toxicity. We saw how the shared cognitive load of an impossible deadline created a bonded peer group rather than bitter rivals.
And we saw how proximity to his idols demystified them, leading to the ultimate breaking of his imposter syndrome as he stood shoulder to shoulder with his former judge as a peer.
And finally, we watched an elite master make the difficult strategic business decision to step back from the lucrative world of teaching and harvesting his past successes to focus on his next artistic evolution, ensuring his creative cup never runs dry.
It is a masterclass in not just technical execution, but in career pacing.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought.
A philosophical scenario to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, inspired by Dylan's time in the Crucible.
We talked at length about the 4-hour mystery challenge, the sheer terror of the blank canvas and the ticking clock. I want you to think about your own profession right now.
Think about the specific tools you use, the software you know, the structural skills you have spent years honing.
If a production crew walked into your workspace tomorrow morning, handed you a box of completely random, unassembled materials related to your field, and gave you exactly 4 hours to create the defining work of your entire career, what would you build?
It is a profound constraint. It instantly strips away all the standard excuses of not having enough funding or the right quarter or the perfect market conditions.
It forces you to identify what your core competency actually is. What would you build in those 240 minutes?
And more importantly, if you know what that defining work is in your head, what is stopping you from trying to build it today without the cameras forcing your hand?
Don't wait for the cliff face to appear in front of you. Start climbing. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We will catch you on the next one.